Welcome to the Inside Data Center podcast. Today I'm joined by Kirk Offel, one of the founders of DCAC. Good morning, Kirk.
Good morning, Andy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, as always. Thanks for coming on. DCAC Europe is only 3 weeks or just under 3 weeks away now. 3 weeks today we'll be there, I guess. That's where we're at. So just wanted to get you on, have a quick discussion about DCAC because it's a different type of event in the calendar. I think and not everyone's aware of it yet. So it's good to get the message out there and share a bit about what the plans are, what's happened before, etc. Before we do all of that, do you want to give everyone a quick introduction for those that don't know who you are?
For sure, Andy. I appreciate it. I'm sure most people don't. My name's Kirk. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm the founder of both DCAC and co-founder of a technology incubator for labor in the United States that's called Overwatch Mission Critical, otherwise known as Overwatch. And we are a service provider there are 5 different phases of the data center lifecycle, as you know. We serve 4 of those 5 phases. So there's about 9 different job domains that represent about 265 different jobs in the US for data centers right now. Our big focus is on trying to align talent with the demand of the industry so we can continue to grow and scale. But about 10 years ago, on a bar napkin, sitting outside of another data center conference, I created a conference itself that was called the Data Center Anti-Conference, that's otherwise known as DCAC today. So that was this year in Austin, Texas in September. We will be hosting our 10th annual DCAC in the United States. But I'm excited to, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, like you said, go host our 2nd annual DCAC Europe in Dublin here in just a little bit. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more. So you mentioned then it was at an event on the back of a beer mat, or napkin, how some of the best businesses are created. Why was it you made that choice though why were you thinking about the need for a different type of event?
Yeah, I mean, fair question. Like most of the people that I'm sure that listen to your podcast, there's a finite amount of conferences within this industry. And I used to go speak to some of them in the United States. In the United States, the most prevalent are Data Center Dynamics, 7x24. Bill Kleiman puts on a hell of a show with AFCOM or Data Center World, right? And we need all of those conferences. There's a purpose for those conferences. There's a lot of education going on at those events. And I think networking is also a big part of these conferences. I think we go to these places to kind of build networks. So, we kind of had to be the same as everyone else before we could be different. But the reason why we started DCAC is because I didn't think the industry needed another event like that. I felt like it needed a better one with a better purpose. And the focus shouldn't be on the equipment and the manufacturers. I think the focus should be on the human. So everyone's so focused on the technology and how quick we iterate. We can innovate and iterate at a rate that far bypasses human biology. So we can go make the most advanced flux capacitors in the world for data centers, but unless we make humans more emotionally and physically and spiritually strong and healthy, the output and productivity that we'll get from our teams will always erode the capacity of what this resource would be on technology. So I focused hard on inspiring people at our conference. So if you want to hear a really interesting story about why I started the conference, let me share a story. I think everyone knows who George Rocket is. He's an industry pioneer, right? He's just been one of the most disruptive people in this industry with regards to conferences. And I think that he's continuing trying to reinvent himself in that way, which puts him on the top of a list of a small category of people that are able to be truly disruptive to the industry. Those conferences, I mean, I grew my career going to data center conferences and networking and bumping into, look, I ran into you and Con, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to run into the industry luminaries and the industry mouths that are having the largest influence over the things that we're doing. You're one of those. And I'm going to try to stay in orbit of those people, right? And what happened was about 10 years ago, I worked in a role in which my role at the time was the director of strategy for a company. And 3 days before DCD Dallas, I was given an email back from DCD and said, hey, you're no longer allowed to come. We're going to refund you your ticket. So I had already been on the speaking circuit, right? You go from DCD New York to DCD Chicago to 7x24 in Phoenix and you're just hitting all the NFL cities in the United States. But what you realize is it's the same speakers at every conference talking about the exact same thing. And all the keywords and tricky phrases are kind of everyone's kind of licking each other's ice cream cones. And then in the middle of a bunch of these conferences, everyone's getting a bunch of awards and stuff. And I realized going to those conferences, like I wasn't in those clubs, I wasn't getting awards, and I didn't understand some of these things that these people are all patting each other on the back about. But like every other industry on this earth, there are celebrities, right? I mean, you're in the UK. If I talk about Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky, I mean, we know that those are celebrities. But if I say, Walt Disney or Michael Dell or Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak, we know that those industries are celebrities for technology. And our industry has those too. Do you agree? We have some celebrities within this industry. You're one of them. My thing would be this. When they told me I couldn't come to their conference, I just, with a bunch of other friends, started designing. What happened was, is they were in Hall A with an exhibit room in between Hall A and B in Dallas. So I just called the hotel and said, "Hey, do you have another exhibit hall?" And they said, "We sure do, but you should know there's a conference taking place here, and the entire expo hall is going to be full with those attendees." I said, "Perfect. Give me attendance hall or give me Hall B, since it's empty and no one's using it." And I called up 4 or 5 friends and I said, "Hey, I need $7,000 from each one of you. For $35,000, we're going to host belly dancing and a charcuterie board with premium alcohol in Hall B." So we end up sucking in the entire DCAC crowd and hijacking that, right? And hijacking conferences became my MO. So then I'd go to AFCOM or, Data Center World in Las Vegas, and I'd rent the rooftop of a bar and hijack all the VIPs. And we just kept going to every conference that wouldn't let us in. And it was a David versus Goliath model. And I remember I hijacked a lot of the DCD conference aspects of the VIP sides of that, because people, like, networking is old. We don't even network anymore. One of my greatest mentors is like, "Kirk, don't build a network, go build relationships." So we started a conference that was designed to focus on you, the human being. If you're a contributor to this industry, you should come and you should feel inspired. So 1/3 of the DCAC conference is focused on the existential threats to this industry. And right now we both know it's just power and people. So we focus 2/3 of everything we're doing on power and people. Where's the problems for power? Where are the interconnection requests coming from? Where are the bespoke markets that the data center industry is going to go build these data centers, since the utility providers are not going to come rescue them with energy? They're going to be putting online their own natural gas distributed plants. And we're going to be building and owning and operating not just the space, the power and cooling of the data center itself, but the power facility that support it as well. So at DCAC, what's different is we don't have an area in which there's 15 different rooms that you have to march all over to and go see people speak. We have one stage. It's like a concert. We set up the whole thing to where it's a fishbowl. Everybody is in the same spot. All the immersion is taking place in the same spot, and then we open up the alcohol early, because I know that if I can create a little bit more of a chilled vibe, a chilled environment, it'll allow for a greater exchange of ideas to take place. And these conferences shouldn't just be there for vendors to talk about how their widgets could do this better than the other widgets. And it shouldn't be so that we could talk about some luminary that none of us have ever met before, who's talking about something that he did throughout the course of his career. This should be data center conferences. You should demand to go to a conference and leave not only inspired by what you heard, but you should be challenged. You should be challenged. You should have heard someone on that stage talk about something that they introduced you to for the first time that had a paradigm shift in your life. And those speakers are like, I always tell every speaker that comes, even you'll speak. And I was like, "Andy, I don't care what you talk about, because no one's going to remember what you say, but everyone will absolutely remember the way you make them feel." So when we have speakers get on stage, I tell them it's not your job to give them a dissertation, right? If Wade Vincent of NVIDIA is going to get on stage, or one of the other industry captains, I don't tell them to give us a PhD in industry. I tell them to introduce us to something that we need to go scratch the paint with ourselves, right? We're all professionals. This is a professional industry. We have to take care of ourselves professionally. We have to come in early, stay late, volunteer for the hardest stuff. And I also, I think that in addition to having some really good opportunities to meet industry leaders, you will be inspired by some of the speakers. They will challenge you to go learn more about subject matter expertise. But at the end, in the second half of day one or day two, I always put a person whose only job in this life is to inspire. Like right now, there's a top 30 leadership gurus in the world. Malcolm Gladwell, Simon Sinek. You know all the names. We know them. Well, number 9 in the world is a guy named Mike Sorelli, and he's my chief talent officer. He comes from a very specialized and a very elite community of the military within the United States. And he has been conditioned over the course of a 20-year career in the military to grow and mentor and train growing adults. So he's helped us codify. I mean, you know, and I know this industry does not lack genius or intelligence, but it certainly lacks leadership in many areas, right? So we teach our people to grow, mentor, and train leaders. And then we have those leaders go out and build teams. So what we can do with those teams is go build data centers, but it all starts with leadership. So at our conference, you should expect to hear the existential threat to the industry, specifically with regards to power, because the adoption rate of emerging technology, specifically driven from the surge of AI, is putting so much strain and stress on the electrical infrastructure throughout every aspect of the grid around the world that it's allowed us to discover that this is an untenable, an unscalable tipping point or an inflection point within our industry where we're going to have to shift to other more safer, more scalable, more renewable forms of energy in the long term. Our conference will be heavily focused on energy. It'll also be heavily focused on the trends of the industry. And the third part is, like I said, the human aspect of what we do. So typically our job is to make sure that when people leave, they leave inspired and they leave inspired to go out and level up as a professional. So that's what I think that you should get from these conferences. And if it wasn't for DCD not letting me go to one of their conferences, I would have never started my own. And now, you know, we had a couple thousand people at it last year in Austin. I'm expecting 700 people at DCAC Europe in Dublin this year. And then once we're done with this one, we're going to continue to take that show to other markets within the Europe to where this is the people's conference. This isn't all the luminaries conference for awards. This isn't where all the equipment manufacturers get to go on stage and Schneider could buy out everything. And this is the people's conference. This is where you come because we created a platform for a greater exchange of ideas for people that didn't have a voice. So the underserved market that they couldn't get into that, or we had to create a conference to where the barrier to entry wasn't expensive. When I was at a younger pace of my career, I couldn't afford to sponsor at these conferences because it cost too much. Our conference is the people's conference, which means if you have a brand new startup and you only have $1,000 in your budget to market, we'll find a place for you to get your brand out there. So like I said, I kind of look at DCAC as the David versus the Goliaths of conferences, but we also look at this as the people's conference. I know that.
Yeah, I love listening to you talk about it because the passion's evident, but also because I agree with so much of what you say. I think with that community, that kind of, I used to say the clique in the industry that was there, it's kind of being disrupted now by people like yourself. You're not aware of it until you start coming up against it. And I think I had similar challenges with Data Center Club, where you start having Data Center Club nights on the night that happens to be an event in a city, and you suddenly get these emails from these people arranging these events saying, why are you doing that, you know, in this city on the night of a conference? And you think, and my reply, well, why not? You know, it's because you're trying to get an environment where the people that can't go to the conference, that can't afford the tickets, can still network with people that are at the event. And I think that's what you've tried to do, is create that event where they cross, where you've got everyone can access the event, and also the people that can't always access the other events can still go. They can come along, they can meet really, really important and key people in the industry, but without that £2,000 ticket or that, whatever it might be.
That disgusts me. Like, it's almost offensive to me because you go and you spend $2,000 to go to a big homogenous hotel where you're getting trash food. You're walking all over the place. You probably walk a mile just to get into that event. My thing is this, that's trash. Like, we need to demand more from these conferences before they'll start changing. And some of them are iterating. You can see we started really disrupting the market over here in the United States to the point where, you know, we are a David versus Goliath. Just so you know, running a conference isn't, I've never done it before in my life. It's not what we wanted to do. We didn't do it because we thought that the industry needed another conference. We just felt like all the ones we had were not growing and not iterating, and they were literally holding the industry back because people were going and just networking. But now we don't need just networking. Networking is what social media is for. That's what LinkedIn's for. Now we need to focus not on networking. We need to focus on relationship building, because the amount of pressure and stress, think about the ecosystem. You and I are in labor, and all the people that we're asking to come to this event are human beings, right? So let's talk about humans. There is such an incredible shift taking place in the supply chain for humans right now. So let's follow me around the horn, right, Andy? I'm sure you saw the same thing in the UK and EU that we saw in America, which was When we discovered in late, maybe 2007, 8, 9, when we discovered that cloud isn't a fad and it's not going anywhere, guess what happened? All the smartest data center owner operators in the world, including the hyperscaling users themselves, went out and started land banking. That was the very first part of the supply chain squeeze, was 10 years ago when we started seeing all the land banking. All right. And then what happened after that was, you know what? We're going to need to start buying equipment. There are people buying generators and chillers and medium voltage equipment or transformers in the year 2027 right now. So people are buying their supply chain 2 years out now. So what happens when they land bank? The price of land goes up. What happens when everyone races to secure their VMI or the vendor management inventory strategy for all the OFCI they have? They go out and they start buying 1-2 years in the click, right? Cool. So now your supply chain, which only has 4 components, has the land locked up. They're buying that in advance. Now they're equipment banking, so they're buying all their stuff or buying equipment spots. The third part was, oh my God, we're out of energy. The reality is we're not out of energy. We just are out of energy in the markets where we build data centers. So we're gonna have to go to those bespoke secondary and third tier, tertiary markets, and we're gonna have to go find where the renewable energy is, and we're gonna have to build data centers there. And it's cool because the AI data centers that we're building today don't have the latency requirements that the cloud data centers were, so we can go build those data centers in different markets. So the supply chain consists of land, equipment, power, and the last phase of the entire supply chain that's getting squeezed is humans. And that is labor. And that's where you and I both fall into this. So the demand for talent is growing so hard that we've no longer got experience in this industry. If anybody has any experience in this industry, they're already working in this industry. The only way to offset for experience is to have certified and trained data center experts that are coming from different groups. Like we offer certification training, but we need to bring in all the people that could come to these conferences, because a lot of them come there to look for new jobs or to look for new mentors or to look for those that need to get mentored. And these conferences are so disruptive that you could come to this event and we put everything inside, the stages inside, the expo halls inside. There's a little bit of it on the outside, but the ability to have direct access to people that make purchasing decisions and that influence purchasing decisions that are significant in this space. You get to be right there and you get to ask them questions in real time. And the beauty about this industry is what I found was most of the leaders of this industry are incredibly approachable. They want to help contribute to the growth of this industry. But right now, the focus isn't on land, and the focus isn't on long lead equipment for data centers, and the focus is no longer on power. The only focus in this industry right now is people. There's only one existential threat to this industry. The only thing stopping this industry from growing is the access to talent. And that's what you and I are all about. And what I did was I added a conference to it, because the other conferences were David versus Goliath. Try to think about it like this. The biggest data center conference in the world is what? Cloud Congress and Con. Those guys 5 years ago started coming to the United States and hosting their conference within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever of ours. And now they're on this exact same date as ours in Austin. So Goliath has already got some of these big ones, and now they're trying to creep their way in the United States. Some of these other ones have been trying to come into Austin as well. But the thing is that conference, the only people that benefit from that, I mean, those are conferences that you could go to and you get a bunch of hangovers and maybe a bunch of business cards, but there's not much else that comes from those conferences. Whereas you could come to ours and you're going to have not the ability to network, but the ability to establish and build a real relationship with people that are there. And like relationships, those are earned. Networking is given, right?
Yeah, and I also agree with your point on you want to learn at these events, like whatever event it is you're going to, even if it's not a data center event, you're going there to listen to somebody give you something. So you go away and whether it helps you develop, it helps you think differently, or whatever it might be, you do want that now. And I think people have changed a bit. Yeah, people have changed.
We're all humans. We're all struggling. Last year at DCAC Europe, we brought in a guy that has the same accent as you. He's a Royal Marine, and he talks about the trials and tribulations of life. Like, there's only 2 types of people in this industry right now that are listening. Those that have their shit together and they have it on lockdown and they know exactly what they want to do. The other group are those that act like they do, they don't. But the truth and the reality is everybody's struggling. with the circumstances of their career. Maybe it's the circumstances of their home that are impacting their career. And I don't think that we as businesses, we do a lot to teach our people and our teams to be subject matter experts, but we don't teach them how to be better people. We actually, there's not a lot of companies in this world right now that are stopping and training their teams on how to become better leaders. And the only reason why I only focus on building leaders first before we build teams, because teams are what build data centers. And if they could do that, then they could take care of the clients. The only reason, look, it's economically efficient and financially accretive for us to invest into our leaders, because the more that they are equipped to understand their capabilities and limitations, the higher level of output and productivity they could bring to this team, which is the largest they could bring to this industry. And this industry, we need more voices. We need more people that come in from the outside looking in and look at the same construct of challenges and problems that we have and can introduce new solutions and how we drive that. And we're going to get that by putting people like that combat army or Marine person on stage. And he's not going to talk to you about how to build a better data center. He's going to talk about how to get a better habit. How do you develop a stronger and a healthier habit? Because we have huge goals. And to have those huge goals, you better have strong habits. And to have strong habits, you better have strong discipline. How do I get that level of discipline? Am I born with that? Or is it a paint by numbers approach? Oh, you mean I just have to set my alarm this time or go to bed early this time? What about when I don't feel good? What do I do to power through that? So like right now, we don't have the ability. Right now, companies in this space used to be like, look, burn them out. And they get done, there's open up the door. There's a whole line of 10 more people down the road that want that same person's job. Not anymore. That line does not exist, because everybody that has any skills or any talent, they're already sucked up into the game, right? So you don't have the ability to just rip out and replace your teams anymore. You're going to have to invest into the human aspect of this, which is why DCAC offers 1/3 of our content exclusively focused on helping you. So Andy, even when you come, you should leave going, man, I'm going to fix my diet or my nutrients or my habit for this, or I'm going to, you know what, I can lock in on that. All I have to do is for 30 days, whatever it is, it should trigger something inside of you that transforms you. And holistically, as long as we can continue to change the chorus, it's the chorus that changes, that sang. We ultimately will sing louder than the soloist. We're the ones that run this industry, not the equipment manufacturers, not the operators. Without us, they could have all the visions in the world, but without us, no one brings that vision alive. So right now, the tail is wagging the dog and the pendulum is shifting. The inflection point is that the supply chain is on its fourth stressor, and it's the last one in the supply chain, and that's labor. You and I should see steady trends of the cost of labor rising, just like when people were land banking, the cost of land rose. When people were buying all their engines out in advance, the cost of that equipment rose. When people were scrambling to buy as much PPA or power that they could get in advance, the cost of power rose. Human beings are discovering that they need more to be better. They want to invest more into themselves, and that costs things. So they're going to come in and say, look, I'm not going to compromise one thing for the other anymore. I'm not going to kill myself to build your dream. I'm here to build mine, and I want to build it with you. Does that make sense? So the inflection point and the tipping point of the labor force in this industry is shifting pretty dramatically in the United States right now. And we get to sit right in the front row of that. And our conference is designed for those people that don't want to just, there's a lot of people that they're unhappy with the circumstances of their lives, and they want more and they want better. And they're going to come to our conference to figure out how to get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I know people that went to Europe last year, and the feedback I got was exactly that. And that's why people are excited about coming this year. That's why I'm excited about coming this year. But also, I know that happens in the US, but the people I spoke to about your first Europe event were, this was genuinely different. I did come away inspired. I came away with, whether I say it's development, learning, inspiration, whatever it might be, they came away with something different that they didn't come away with from the other events. You know, I agree there's a place for all of them, but I think yours has got a real focus on a certain area, the people part, which is vitally important, but also it's what people want. So people are gonna come because that's what they want to get from this event. So
what we're seeing is there's industry leaders, like there's luminaries and the CEOs of the operators and large leaders within the hyperscale themselves, and they come to this event. We have some of the most influential people in the world that come to this event. At least in the United States, and we're hoping to build it up. It'll take a few years to build it up in the European presence, right? But at the end of the day, we bring them in because if you're a leader and you have people in your charge, it's not good enough for you to only look at them through the function or the lens of business, where you're like, how do I get as much from them before I have to go replace them? The truth is, the only challenge in in labor today, it's not recruitment because there's talent and there's certification agencies that are out there. It's retention. And people are growing disenchanted or disenfranchised at the companies they're at, and they don't know where to pivot towards. And they don't even know how to. They don't know what some people don't know what they don't know. They haven't seen the ball since kickoff. They just showed up, they arrived on scene, they're in the industry, and they're not sure. And that's where we have to start. I always tell people this is like soccer or what you guys call football. I'm like, how do you know you belong in the net? How do you know you're not a forward? Maybe you're a defender with that speed, but you just have to get in the game and start sliding around until you figure out where your spot is. And these conferences should open up that aperture so people could come in and go, okay, so there's only 5 phases of a data center life cycle. There's the development, the design, the delivery, the commission, the operate. Where do I want to spend my career? Oh, you know what? I don't want to be there forever. So I'm going to move into this one, or I don't want to move into this one. What are those opportunities and what does that look like? And if you're a leader in this industry, you can't afford not to be a DCAC. What's the message that you're sending your team that you don't care about their growth and development as a human? The only thing that we as leaders can care about today is our teams, because our teams take care of the problems and our teams are what take care of the clients. And if we can take care of the clients, then that takes care of everything else. So my client is my team. My client is my culture. The only thing I focus on at DCAC is creating a culture where people could come and they could all plug in. Doesn't matter if you're the CXO at some company or you're the brand new person to the industry over here. You're going to be sitting at the same table talking to the same person, and you're going to have access to all the leadership in the space. And you should be able to feel like you could reinvent yourself every 2 years in this space if you know who to follow and who to pay attention to, right? And that's what these conferences should be all about. Not just telling us who has the best switch gear, who's got the best generators right now. I mean, we need to know those things too, but we need to know about humans more. So these other conferences, they focus on everything else and then handing out awards. Ours is how do we make people and empower people to be healthier and more confident and more emotionally capable of going out and pursuing greater things in this industry.
Yeah, and we should say as well, May the 13th, 14th in Dublin. It's not a long way now. This will be out 20 something of April or for end of April, basically. So you're talking a couple of weeks to the Button Factory in Dublin, as I say, and I'm looking forward to attending myself. But where can people get tickets if they want to come along? I'm sure people do after hearing all about it.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Well, DCAC Live is, if you Google DCAC Live, it'll come up with our website, and I'll probably come up with the Austin event. Just go into the menu and drop down and look for DCAC Europe. And in DCAC Europe, look, man, we have day jobs. We go out and build teams. We go out and build leaders that build teams, and those teams will build data centers. But the industry wasn't offering us a solution to figuring out how to become healthier and stronger professionals within this industry. They're just teaching us more about the industry itself. And I think that if you have any questions about what your future looks like in this industry, you should be at DCAC. You should be there to not only quote unquote network, but you should go there to build relationships, because the future person that leads your team that you're going to hire to help build your team, they're there. Or the person that you want to go work for, who's going to block and tackle and help you grow your career, they're there. Right. So I encourage everybody that's listening. We are the cheapest conference in the world for what we do on purpose, because this is the people's conference. We don't do this to make money. We do this to make a difference. So all the money gets poured back into the conference because we have day jobs. Just like you, we have a day job. But on the side, we're not going to sit around and wait for these industry giants and all the Goliaths to do something that would be better for the industry, but maybe a little less profitable for them. Where for us, I can go be as disruptive as I want to, because I didn't do this to make money. I did this to make a difference. What I do for a living is on the side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll put the website in the show notes as well. And also, I know you bring the fun aspect to it as well, which we should talk about. Like there's band, there's
Yeah.
golf,
It's
there's all
live
sorts of
music.
activities.
Yeah, we do, cornhole. We do a bunch of charity stuff. Like, this is a human element. Like, yes, this industry there's nothing in this world more punk rock than the data center industry in the world. If everybody that's listening, like your kids, if you're listening, they'll be in this industry, and most likely the jobs they'll have haven't been invented yet, but there will only be by 2032 industries in the world. One will be the data center industry, and the second will be every other industry that's in an adjacent orbit around our industry, whose purpose is to serve the data center industry, because technology is king now, right? And the only threat to this industry, it's not power, it's not supply chain, it's not land, it's humans. And we need to start figuring out how to get more output and productivity from our humans. So that's why we try to make it fun. It turns out the more fun you have, the higher level of output and productivity you have. So what we try to do is create an environment for the better exchange and a higher level of output. That's it.
Yeah, fun's the key to everything. If you're enjoying it, everything's easier. That's the way I've always looked at it. And final question before I let you get on with your day, because I know you're busy. What's one tip you'd give to anyone who's attending, whether it's DCAC Europe for the first time or whether they come to DCAC US in September? Because obviously we've got a lot of US listeners as well. So what tip would you give anyone coming for the first time to a DCAC conference?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is when people come, we kind of crawl and we walk and we run. It's just part of human nature. So I've noticed the patterns when people come, they spend the first year just kind of absorbing it all and taking it all in. And then they spend the second year kind of knowing where the bathrooms are at already. So they show up kind of knowing what their game plan is going to be. And then by year three, they're the first ones that are raising their hand, asking questions. I mean, when we spoke at South by Southwest here in Austin, South by Southwest, a large technology conference, about 380,000 people this year, I think. And I had Chris Crosby of Compass, I had Dana Adams of Vantage, and I had Christian Velati of former Microsoft, now Digital Bridge, on that stage. And when you get done talking at those things, you're trying to figure out, like, how do people connect with us afterwards? And what I would tell you is, if you're coming to one of our conferences, skip year one and skip year two and go straight to year three. Come in and just ask questions. At South by Southwest, we had standing room only and we ran out of questions. I mean, we didn't run out of questions, ran out of time because everyone got up and asked questions, because that's how energetic that conference is, where the lines join. People want to hear and they want to be able to directly ask questions. So if you're on stage, don't you want people to have the ability to ask questions to you, right? So my advice is, don't be shy. No one cares, and there's no stupid questions. So people should show up and they should immediately engage. Don't acclimate over the course of time and then give yourself a rump. Show up to these conferences and stay uncomfortable. Go walk up to people and hand them a business card or hand them whatever you use to exchange information. But my advice to people coming is, don't just show up and be a wallflower, and don't just sit immersed in the environment. Go be a part of it. That's my advice.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'll be doing in a couple of weeks. That's what I want to do. And I think I was going to say as well, like, well done to you, because I know, we met in Cannes, which was nearly a year ago now, but we've been kind of in contact for a while. And I think the industry needed change, and it's people like you that have helped make that change. And I think it's really important because people did need something different, and they still do. There's still a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of people doing great work, but the industry's evolved at such a rapid pace that I think change has happened without a focus on the people. And I think it is really important that people like you and David and other people at DCAC have come in and they've tried to do something different to help the people. And there's other examples of that in the industry, but like you say, you do have a job. You don't have to do things like this, and people forget that sometimes. So you do need to have a level of appreciation for what you've done.
Yeah, I have a right-hand kid. His name's David Isaac, and he's now the president of DCAC. He's been with me since year one, and he's the quarterback of this show. So I give him all the credit. I'll help him with a thing here or a thing there, maybe a few speakers. But I put together such an amazing team that DCAC doesn't need me. If I never showed up to another one of these events, it's taken on a life of its own, and I didn't build it around me. It's for the industry. This is the people's conference. In fact, I'm going to try to figure out how to be on stage less and less and less over the course of time, so that we can open up there's future leaders coming in right now, and they could only have been in this industry 2-3 years, and they have ideas that we need to hear from. The platforms that we have, you have a podcast, I have a podcast, and then we have a conference. We created those so that we could give a platform to people that didn't otherwise have a voice, because you're not going to go to Data Cloud Congress. They're not going to let you in. They're the Goliath of the world, right? And we just don't care about those bigger shops. We don't care about the rules. We care about the people.
Exactly. And what a way to end the podcast. But thanks, Kirk. I know you're really busy. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks as well. If any listeners can't find tickets, drop me a message. I'll direct you, but we will put the link in the show notes. And if anyone listening is there, obviously come and say hello. I'll be there. We look forward to seeing everyone.
I ask everyone that's listening, if they are coming to DCAC, I don't care how busy I look, because I'll be busy every minute I'm there. I'm sure you will be too. But please don't stop and give me the opportunity to shake hands and get to know you. I won't remember everyone's names, but I do remember faces pretty well, So listen, I appreciate you, Andy. You have a massive impact on this industry. Your own podcast helped inspire me. So I appreciate everything that you do for this industry as well. And again, I appreciate you giving me the time.
Pleasure. It's good to disrupt with someone. So, yeah. Thanks, Kirk. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.